This is Ayana Baraka, and I'm on the Cinematography podcast.
The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Ilya Friedman.
Hey there, Ben Rock.
Hey, Ilya Friedman, what's up?
What's up with you?
You know, living the dream here in the San Fernando Valley.
You know, what's up is a distinctly sort of American greeting. You know, I don't know any other, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't really speak too many languages, but I can't think of another language where one person says, what's up? And then the other person responds by also saying, what's up without answering. It's a uniquely American thing.
What do Spanish people say when somebody says que pasa?
Do they also say que pasa back, or do they respond with something else?
I don't know. I took 2 years of Spanish, but I couldn't hold a conversation if my life depended on it.
Well, you know what? I'm sure that one of our listeners can answer this for us. Like, yeah, but the unanswered question greeting, that's a maybe a que pasa is that thing. I couldn't tell you either.
Yeah. Well, so Ilya, shall we talk about who's on the show? It is
Yes.
Ayana Baraka, an interview
Right.
you conducted.
I did, and it's a really fun interview, and I'm really glad that she's on the show. And that's coming up in just a few minutes. But first, we got to talk about our close focus.
And now, Close Focus.
What's happening this week in entertainment?
It's a pretty wide close focus. Emmy nominations came out.
And, you know, Emmys, big deal. You know, people talk about already having reached peak television and then, you know, being on the downward slide. I don't know. There's some really, really good stuff nominated this year. There's some really, really excellent stuff I know coming up in the pipeline. Who was nominated this year for an Emmy in cinematography?
Okay, so if you're listening to us, strap in, because we're going to go through a bunch of categories here. And it starts with Outstanding Cinematography for a Multi-Camera Series, half hour. And
Multi-camera, of course, being the type of, like, you know, sitcom type of shows that are popular on major networks. You've got multi-cameras all shooting at the same time, sometimes in front of a live audience, sometimes with a laugh track, sometimes not.
And I'm actually really happy to say the first one nominated stars my friend Billy Gardell.
Oh, fantastic.
Bob Hart's Abishola. It's Patty Lee, ASC, Director of Photography. Then we've got the Connors, Donald A. Morgan.
Friend of the show, yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
be confused with the other Don Morgan, who we
That's
also had on the
also a
show.
friend of the show.
Yeah. The one shot John Carpenter's Christine. The other one shoots sitcoms mostly.
And was just nominated for the Connors. Congratulations, Don A. Morgan. That's great.
Yeah. Donald's an awesome guy. Then we have Frasier, Gary Baum, How I Met Your Father, Gary Baum, ASC.
That's going to be a tough one for Gary this year. When you're nominated for the you know, two categories, your friends might, I don't know which one they're going to vote for.
Once you get into a loop, like you're one of the known commodities in that world, and so you know you probably, if you look year to year, you probably see a lot of the same people nominated in multi-camera, because you know, and honestly, when we had Donald A. Morgan on, I didn't know half of what was going on with multi-camera, because it's such a unique skill even among cinematographers. It's like somewhere between lighting for theater and the way, knowing how the cameras are all going to work, but it's like such a dark art. It's such a specific thing. So that we've got a couple others. Night Court, Wayne Ken and ASC nominated for Night Court, the reboot of Night Court, and then the Upshaws, Chuck Ozias, director of photography on that. So pretty strong group there. Do you want to do Outstanding Cinematography for a single camera series, half hour?
For the half hour single camera series, starting first up is The Bear. Andrew, believe it's pronounced Weedy. It's Wehde. Congratulations, Andrew.
We should get him on the show. That show is amazing.
So, and then of course, another friend, someone I've known a long time, Adam Bricker. Adam Bricker shot Hacks.
Great show.
Super thrilled to see him on the list here. It's fantastic. And Adam is now ASC. They didn't include that in this list here, but I know, Adam, you're ASC. Congratulations on that. Physical Jimmy Lindsay, ASC, Physical, great show. Really love that
Beautiful
show.
show, yeah.
So much fun. Then up next, Reservation Dogs, Mark Schwartzbard. I really liked Reservation Dogs. Did you see Reservation Dogs?
Yes, and I mean, that is like so beloved and so appreciated. Like it's a kind of a landmark show. I mean, what's funny is how many of these shows are kind of landmark shows. So anyway, good on all of them. And then you still have one more.
And of course, yeah, Sugar, Richard Rutkowski, ASC, Sugar, of course, on Apple TV Plus. Great show. Up next, Ben, your opportunity here to tell everyone for the nominees for Outstanding Cinematography for a series 1 hour.
Oh, boy. Okay, strap in. The Crown, of course, shot by Sophia Olsen. FSF, what is that?
French.
They make that in France?
I guess so. Or maybe she's French.
And then The Crown. So the first one, first one was The Crown, the episode called Ritz. The second one is The Crown, episode called Sleep Dearie Sleep, shot by Adriano Goldman, ASC, BSc, ABC.
Yeah, Brazil. Yeah.
Brazil.
Yeah, so American, British, and Brazilian cinematography societies. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Then a real obvious layup of something that should be nominated for everything ever. Shogun. The episode is Engine, and that's Christopher Ross, shot by Christopher Ross. Then,
which we had a great interview with him. And Shogun, we should mention, just totally killed it at the nominations. They have got more nominations than any other show.
But it's not surprising. It's such a well done show. And then Shogun Crimson Sky, shot by Sam McCurdy, ASC, BSc. And then Three Body Problem, another not a huge surprise that show's getting nominated. Three Body Problem, Judgment Day, shot by Martin Algren, ASC. And Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, the episode Beat LA, shot by Tom Bonshall.
It's Van Hazel.
Van Hazel, you interviewed him.
I did. We had a great conversation, and it was so much fun having Todd on the show. And let me tell you, I know that the show was officially canceled, but if you did not watch Winning Time, you should go watch Winning Time. It's such a great show, and I think it was the worst mistake that HBO made all year. Of all the things they could have done.
I don't know. It really needs to take a number in terms of, it's a longer story, but like what's going on over at Warner Brothers and HBO is,
you know what, I'm not gonna go into all of that stuff, but like worst mistake as far as like canceling a show, I think I got to give it to Winning Time.
Enough.
It should still be there.
All right. You take us away with Outstanding Cinematography for a limited or anthology series or movie.
Whew. Okay, so starting off the nominations, All the Light We Cannot See, episode 4, which is Tobias Schlesinger, ASC. Episode 4, it's on Netflix. It doesn't actually give us a title, so I guess it's just episode 4. Then, of course, Fargo.
All the title we cannot see. Sorry, go on.
Then, of course, Fargo, which the episode is The Tragedy of the Commons, Dana Gonzalez, ASC. And Dana, of course, has been producing and directing and doing a ton of stuff with that show. And I'm really happy to see him on the list. I'd love to chat with him about this season of Fargo. It's been really great. And then, of course, Griselda, Middle Management is the episode, and it's Armando Salas, ASC, who I believe you spoke with.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Like it's a fantastic show, and it's so well done.
And then next up is Lessons in Chemistry, Little Miss Hastings, which is Apple TV Plus, and that's Zachary Goller, director of photography. Then Ripley, which the episode is V. Lucio, and that's on Netflix, and Robert Elswit, director of photography.
I think that guy's going somewhere.
Yeah, he's got something going on.
Yeah. I think Bob Elswit might actually accomplish something.
And then we also have to, Florian Hoffmeister. Florian Hoffmeister nominated for True Detective Night Country Part 6, which, holy crap, how great was True Detective? True Detective.
One of my favorite shows of last year.
Yeah. So Florian Hoffmeister, BSc, and that's a great interview. And if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to that interview. It's really fantastic. So Ben, up next is, I think, our last category that we're going to talk about in the show. It's just, it's so much, and
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yakking here. Outstanding cinematography for a nonfiction program. Who is nominated for an outstanding cinematography for a nonfiction? All
Get
right.
all psyched.
I got
All right.
stretching out here. Yeah.
Getting loose
All right.
here. Okay. Beckham, the kick, shot by Tim Cragg.
He was super talented. Yeah, DP, Tim Cragg. Yeah.
Girl State.
Mm.
It just says Apple TV, so we don't actually have we have several directors of photography. Laura Huddock, director of photography. Leslie Kilborn, director of photography. Daniel Carter, director of photography. Aaron
Oh,
Patrick Lamont.
I think it's Aaron. But
Yeah, I think you're right. Aaron Patrick Lamont. Carrie Oberly. Thorsten
Tilo.
Tilo.
Yes, we've had him on the show. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. You're ahead of me on that one. And then Martin Radwan.
Mhm.
Uh, so
Well done, sir.
I wouldn't say well done at all. I think I made a
made
hash
it.
of that.
You made it through.
I read the words in front of me.
You did.
Yeah. But awesome. And then this is one that I think was my short end one week. Jim Henson, Idea Man, shot by Igor Martinovic and Vanya
Shernal. Yeah.
Chernal.
Who I've interviewed before, and I think you are going to interview like next week.
Yeah. We're set to interview him for House of the Dragon. And so
I think we'll talk a little bit about Idea Man too.
I'll definitely get into Idea Man. I mean, honestly, having worked for Ron Howard, whenever Ron Howard comes up, I always like to hear about him because, he's just a gem of a person. He's a great artist. He makes awesome films. And Idea Man is definitely something that I think people are going to be appreciating for a long time to come. Our Planet, Chapter 1, World on the Move.
No, it's Our Planet 2.
Our Planet 2, Chapter 1, World on the Move, shot by Brad Besselnick. Excuse me. Yeah. Cinematography by Kyle McBurney. And then it says cinematography by, and there's nobody there. So, way to go, Brad and Kyle. And then easily confused with Our Planet 2, Planet Earth 3 Extremes from BBC America. And that was shot by John Shire.
Also Luke Nelson.
Oh, yes. Luke Nelson. Yes.
Whew, okay.
That's
Ben,
a lot.
Congratulations. We made it through the nominations.
Yeah. Oh boy.
We could chat more about these nominations, but there were so many good things. If you did not see some of these nominated series for cinematography, I'm going to encourage you to go out and take a look at them, especially some of the ones that for people we interviewed, because you get all that extra depth and all that extra information that they were imparting and sharing with us. I think it adds an extra layer to when after you watch the show to get some more information about the whole thing. So.
It's honestly one of the great pleasures of doing this podcast is that we get to see this amazing work and then we talk to the people who put it together and hear about the creative process that went into it. And the thing is that even the people who we haven't interviewed yet, some of them we hopefully will get to interview, but it's like that complex and that fascinating a creative process went into every single one of these shows.
Indeed. Well, I think that we should get to the interview now with Ayana Baraka.
Here we go.
The Cinematography Podcast Interview.
I'm joined now by Ayana Baraka. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the Cinematography Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, you've been doing this for a little while, and you've got a new ESPN series. Tell our listeners what that show is and what it's all about.
Sure. So the ESPN series is called In the Arena, Serena Williams, and it highlights the 23 Grand Slams of her career. So it goes into her career and her life during that time.
Lots of interviews, some reenactments. Talk a little bit about what it is that you brought to this project, and what type of look that you're trying to put on the thing.
Sure. So actually, can I tell you about how I got the job, and that kind of will go into what?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a step back. How did you get this job?
Sure. So it actually was a decades-long process.
Oh, wow.
So I know in previous podcasts you talked about it's not necessarily who you know, but the quality of the people that you know. And that's exactly what my situation was. I met Victor, who is currently the Senior Vice President of Production at Religion of Sports, about 10 years ago, and I shot something when he was at a different production company. And that project never sold, but we just kept in contact. And every now and then he would contact me about shooting something. So the last time I saw him, he asked me, what is it that you want to do? And I told him, I want to move into episodic. I want to move into series. And so when this project came up, this is actually the second season of In the Arena. The first one was Man in the Arena with Tom Brady. When this project came up, he mentioned my name. And I had the opportunity to go to Los Angeles to meet with Religion of Sports, the Religion of Sports team. And they basically told me about the project, showed me a PowerPoint of what they wanted, what they envisioned. And then they turned to me and they said, so do you have any ideas? And I am like a type A type of person. Like, I will over prepare like to the nines. So I was like, absolutely. And I opened my laptop and I'm like, this is what I envision. And it was awesome because it was totally in alignment with what they already had in there. Like we like literally had some of the same photos. Like, this is how much in synergy we were. And so
let me interrupt you a little bit. Talk about this little process of putting together your pitch deck and your thoughts and your things. Did you guys, both come from the same sources? Were you both using like Shot Deck, or were you just randomly pulling stuff from the internet? How did you end up with the same images for this?
I'm not sure where they got their images, but I will look at everything because I study people's faces, right? And especially if I'm going to film them, I'm looking at old commercials, I'm looking at old documentaries that they were in, I'm looking at definitely like I'm Googling them and definitely looking at images online, just like how they are naturally, like paparazzi photographs, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure where they got their images, but we definitely had some of the same images. And so that was really exciting. We had the same ideas about lighting, and I was familiar with Man in the Arena. And so I know that we wanted to honor season 1, but at the same time, Serena is a completely different person, a different athlete. It's a different sport. We wanted to create something specific for Serena and her legacy. So, So that went well, but I never like walk away from a meeting like, oh, I absolutely have that in the bag, because they also have like their own internal cinematographers on freelance. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was like a few weeks later, I was contacted again and they said, hey, so we're going to have lunch with Serena. Would you like to come so that she can meet you? And I was like, oh my gosh. So I guess that was like the third round of like this process. So I was like, absolutely. I went to Los Angeles, had lunch.
Okay, so you went to Los Angeles. Where were you when this all came down? Where did you get the call?
So I'm based in New Jersey. So I was in New Jersey and actually had a job lined up for whenever, I think it was probably the next week was the actual lunch. And I like called that person immediately and was like, I'm so sorry, I have to, replace myself. And they totally understood. They were like, you need to go. So yeah, I was in New Jersey and like hopped on the plane.
Were you starstruck? Have you been a fan of Serena for a long time, or are you not a tennis fan? Tell me about this moment, this meeting.
So I'm definitely a fan of sport. Like, I'm familiar with sport. I was athletic in high school, but I'm very far removed from high school. And I, know Serena because she's like Serena Williams. But,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, I learned a lot during the process of filming. I'll say that. Like, there was a lot about Serena that I just was not familiar with, and it just made me just even more inspired and, like, totally understanding why, like, she's the GOAT for sure. But, yeah, at the lunch, there were definitely some nerves going into it, because I think in any situation, when you're in a position of being judged, it's, like, nerve-wracking. It's like, oh, God. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You want to be understood. And
Well, clearly you aced it because you got the gig. So, clearly it went well. But did you feel like you were coming in nervous, or was it just, it was just another day, just another interview?
Well, I think that I've been prepared. I knew how I wanted to light her. I knew what, like, I will say that I was pretty confident in the meeting, like to the point where we were sitting at this huge round table and I'm like on the opposite end of Serena, and I like pulled out my phone because I had like all these notes of the things I wanted to do, and I was just explaining like, these are the ideas based on the deck that ROS has. These are the ideas. And she was like, oh, come sit closer. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. I think I'm doing pretty okay. So yeah, I'll say I was pretty confident. It's just
all right.
about
Nice.
being prepared, and yeah, I felt pretty confident about that one.
All right. So did you leave the meeting, or did you leave LA knowing that you had the job in the bag, or was it like you're flying back to New Jersey going, God, I really don't know what's going to happen next?
So I felt like I did really well. I think I impressed her. I think I impressed the ROS team because, this is like the second time they're meeting me. But I never am, I never say it's 100% in the bag until I'm actually on set. Even if I've ordered equipment, I'm like, no, I'm not going to get like too excited until I'm actually until I press record and like we're doing it. So I don't know. That's just a weird thing about me.
Well, no, not at all. I think that's actually really normal. But of course, episode 1 of In the Arena with Serena, it's like, she talks about the premonition that she has about winning, like, her first Grand Slam. Like, she just knew she was going to win this. She knew it from the get-go. And so I was just kind of wondering if there was any sort of like parallel here of like, I got this, I'm showing up, it went great, and like you're flying back like this. This. I'm not saying that this is your Serena Williams moment here. You had it, but the confidence, and like clearly it paid off. Clearly you did the job. So let's dive in now to we talk about how you got the job, and it's a great story, but. Once you get, now that you've got the gig, you still got to deliver. You still got to make it all happen. So talk a little bit about just your, now that you've prepared for the interview, now you've got the job, how do you actually prepare for the job itself, and how does that go down?
Oh gosh. So I am, like I said, type A. So I will test. I test everything. And I'm in New Jersey, so I narrowed it down to the camera that we were going to use, Ariel Alexa Mini LF. I knew that from season 1. In season 1, they used anamorphic lenses, so I knew that we were going to use anamorphic, but I still wanted to try spherical lenses. So I narrowed it down to 2 lenses. One was the Cook anamorphic full frame lenses, and then the other ones were the Summilux C's.
Oh, sure.
And I just wanted to, because I just love the look of those lenses, and so I just wanted to try it, just to offer it to them as like another option. But ultimately we did go with anamorphic. And then once I had the lenses narrowed down, I then begun the lighting test and the filter tests. And I also tested the distance of the backdrop, because I wanted to be able to walk into the situation and know exactly where the backdrop needs to be, so that the fall off is exactly where we want it to be, and I would know exactly where to put the chair. Like, this is how much I'm thinking about it ahead of time. And I think all of the preparation really worked out, because I had the lens, I had the filter combination. I also knew that I wanted to put something in front of the light. I always adapt the light, because it's like light from the sun or from the lighting in your room is never straight like 5600 or 3200. Even if you adapt that within that range, it's still bouncing off of all of the elements in your space. So I always put something in front of the light. And on my last documentary, I worked with the Broca rags. And so for this one, I contacted John Tyndall and I was like, hey, I would love to test like all of the things. Like he also has a line of like anamorphic type of like an anamorphic facial series that will help narrow, because you know when you use anamorphic it like widens the face, and so he has one that will narrow the face, and he has like other ones. So I tested all of those, and I narrowed it down to two that I wanted to use, two rags that I wanted to use, and I just ended up purchasing those. And then I also made custom LUTs for Serena and her skin, because, you know, the quality of light is so important. And I think that if we just adapt the light to be like softer or harder, that's like one element. But there's like several other elements of lighting, so and color is a part of that. I don't think RGB is quite there yet to give us what happens naturally in an environment. And so
you mean RGB LED? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So you know you have bicolor lights, and then you have RGB lights, but I don't think RGB is quite there as far as like how punchy they are, then also like what they're able to do as far as like the range of color. I think it's much nicer to look at a light, like a bicolor light that you adapt with a rag in front. So adding those colors to break up the spectrum of light that hits the face. Yeah. So like with Serena, and this is what I told her in her first meeting, like the quality of light on the face and skin tone is so important to me, but especially for people of color. Like there's a lot of nuance, and everyone has different undertones. And with Serena, she has pinkish undertones. And so I wanted to make sure I bring that out, and so that we can see, you know, pretty much all of the nuance in her skin. Yeah. So that's what we did. Like we adapted it, and I always want to maximize anything that I do. So what is the maximum of like what we can do with this image? Yeah. Like we're constrained because there was already a season 1, but what can we do with the season 1 with those constraints to really maximize the look of the image?
I want to ask you a little bit more about reflected light, because, you know, you like to use rags, you like to bounce light. Tell me, you know, just, you know, what you think, you know, bounce light versus direct firing light. You know, what's for our listeners out there who are not necessarily as familiar with this, or maybe are only doing like direct light and don't get into bounces. You know, explain a little bit of like what that benefit is, and why you enjoy it so much.
Sure. So I did both. You're gonna think I'm nuts, but
no chance.
I both bounced the light and I passed through the rags, and we did a 180 lighting setup. So this is a lighting plan that I created with Ralph the Gaffer and with Brian the Key Grip on there, because I think shadows are so important. But essentially, we both bounced the light into a parabolic that helped our key light, and then we also did pass through lighting. So we passed through the Baraka rags, which are really thick. They're like magic cloth, and so it's really, really thick. So we had a lot of light, and we did this 180 lighting setup because I wanted to be very specific about where the light is hitting and like how it's landing. So for instance, like I knew that Serena could handle highlights, and I knew that she could handle shadows. So in the back, we had almost direct light, because we went through light grid. That was a little bit punchier, and it gave her like this nice edge on her back edge. That quality of light was really good because, again, I wanted to be very specific about where the light lands on her face and the shadows. And then we did another 180 on the other side of negative fill. And I knew that I wanted a soft gradient. So going from like light to dark in this very like soft gradient from one end to the other. I knew I didn't want Rembrandt because it was 8 episodes. We had the opportunity to tweak, like very small tweaks over the course of the episodes. And so I remember like I don't know which episode it was, but for one of the episodes, I tried a 12 by rag, and that just changed the quality of the light so much that I mean, the normal person wouldn't notice, but I noticed it, and I was like, I don't really like the quality of the light going through this 12 by. So then we went back to 6 buys.
Sure.
And then there was like another time where I think we did all these like small changes, and you could just see like, I wonder if people will notice over the course of the episodes, but like we did these like very small changes, and it changed things like very minutely. But then by like episode 7, we like worked out all of the kinks, and for me, that's my favorite episode.
Nice. All right. Well, look, we've been chatting for a little while about this, but I kind of want to take a step back too. I looked at your IMDb, and it looked to me like your first credits like 10, 11 years ago. And I got to say, looking at you, you don't look like someone who's been doing this for 10 or 11 years. You look like you. So, I mean, did you start when you were like 12? How long have you been doing this? Yeah.
So I actually began I feel like I began kind of late, honestly. Like, I went through undergrad and I went into a completely different industry. I went into the healthcare industry.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is a second career. You changed careers after you said, forget healthcare. I'm gonna go become a DP. I'm gonna go play with light and cameras.
That's exactly what happened.
All right. Well, I mean, this is like peeling an onion. You got to go back. We got to go back another step now. So okay. So you're going down. You're in college. You're saying like, I'm going into healthcare. And then, so what was that moment for you when you decided this is not for me? You've been working towards this thing. At what point did you change your mind?
While in college, I took a film class. And
the film class was the gateway drug. It got you into this. All right.
Yeah. Because, you're always, well, for me, like, I was always very interested in filmmaking, but coming from New Jersey, it never was like a feasible option. Mm-hmm. And healthcare is like the industry you go into. Like, that's our industry, I feel like, in New Jersey. Maybe that's not true anymore, but, every pharmaceutical company is based here. And so I didn't take it seriously, but I did take one film class, and I made a documentary about my best friend's mom, who's paranoid schizophrenic, and I showed it. And just the reaction of the class really was so moving for me. I was like, wow, this is like such a powerful medium. Like, it changed the perspective that people had on the homeless population. And it was just like such a powerful moment. Almost life-changing moment for me, but I didn't do anything with it at that moment. So I went into healthcare, and I was like, I'm going to change lives doing this. And it didn't turn out that way. It didn't turn out the way that I anticipated. And so I like left that industry and just immediately, like the following week, just started working in New York, like literally for everyone. Started as a PA, as an intern. Eventually I became an area prep tech. And this is wild. I like tested into the union and started working as an AC, but didn't join. I didn't pay dues yet. Mm-hmm. And simultaneously, I got into USC film school. So I called the union and I was like, hey, like I have these options. And the gentleman who was in charge of membership at the time was like, well, we've never had, it was like, weird. Mm-hmm. We've never had someone get into the union and then like want to go to school, but okay, your membership will still be here when you get out. And so I went to school, went to USC, and just like kept working. I did additional cinematography on a bunch of films. And so by the time I graduated, one of the films was like an Oscar hopeful. It changed legislation. It was like huge. And then the second one was nominated for an Emmy. And then a short film that I made at USC was purchased and adapted into a feature film. Wow. And then I shot my first, like, with the independent, like, my own single credit for BET International right after graduating.
All right, I gotta stop you here for 1 second. So you came to USC. You had a series of successes, one after another of these projects, all doing well, but I want to just jump a second back, because I think a lot of our listeners and our viewers may not understand necessarily how getting into the union works and what exactly that means. And like you said, you tested into it. I assume that means like you got qualified with contract services, and in contract services, they said, all right, start paying us money. But then you also got into film school, and contract services was like, you know what, you're in, but we're gonna just put this whole thing on hold. Can you explain a little bit, like, you know, what? Can you explain a little bit for our listeners who don't follow this, like how that actually happens, or what goes into it? Because I'm sure there's other people out there who are thinking the same thing right now. Like, hey, I want to go get in the union. I want to go do, you know, better jobs.
Well, the person who told me that I could finish school and then just pay dues when I get out retired while I was in school. So when I called the union after I graduated, they were like, no, you have to get all your hours now. So it changed. But when he was in charge, it was like an indefinite membership opportunity.
So now you had to collect call sheets. Now you had to collect and prove, like, your check stubs that you actually did these days that you're qualified to be in. Yes. Oh man! So basically, what you're saying is you got bad information. You got the wrong information.
I was like, "What? You retired?"
Oh man!
Oh my gosh!
Well, I'm glad. I'm really glad that I asked too, because, like, you know, this like, I don't want to perpetuate, like, myths, because, like, I know one other person who had, like, basically was able to stay it off, but they had to, like, call every month and say, hey, I'm not quite ready yet. I'm not quite ready yet. So
you see.
So
should have done that.
So how long were you at SC then? Did you go to SC for 2 years? Is that
3 years?
3 years.
Yeah, I was there for 3 years, and it was a great experience. Like, very expensive. I do not recommend if you don't have the funds, because it was still very expensive. But the people that I met there, like, being able to work and just study for 3 years was really great, and just discovering new films was really great for me too. But did I answer your question though about testing into the union?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I
haven't been answering your questions this whole time.
No, but this is a great conversation, and, you know, I prefer a natural conversation to one that's you know, fixates on every single thing. But yeah, talk about testing. Talk about that. That sounds it's interesting. Yeah.
So I do want to let people know that there is a way in, like, if you have, like, and I knew no one, like, my family was not in the industry. I didn't have any friends in the industry. And I didn't even know about being a camera prep tech when I, like, started PAing and interning, until a producer who knew that I wanted to go into camera, she was like, well, then you need to go work at CSC. So I was like, okay, what's CSC? So I looked them up and worked there for about a year. And basically, as a camera prep tech, you are working at a camera rental house, like Aerie, and you're cleaning cases for about a year, and you're just learning how to take care of the equipment. But at the time, it was a really great time to be there, because it was we were transitioning into digital. So I got to see film. I got to see technicians who would, like, completely take apart the film cameras and then put them back together, or, like, take a lens apart and, like, reshim and, like, put it back together. And then I also got to see, like, the first generation of Arri Alexa come through. So it was the perfect time for me to learn and just take all of that in. And as a prep tech, you're also meeting first ACs, and then DPs are coming and they're doing their camera tests. You're meeting DPs, and you're just constantly in the space of learning. So I think that's a great place to be if you want to learn more of the technical parts of camera. And also, at the time, CSC had lighting right next door. So you know, I was able to see the lights and meet gaffers and things. And because we had all of this technical knowledge, and because we were so close to the first ACs who would then, like, take us on as, like, their camera PA on jobs, we had the opportunity, and everyone had the opportunity, but the test is really hard. We had the opportunity to test. The test is really, really hard. I'll say that. It's not easy. It's like, oh, what's the mathematic equation for circle of confusion? And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know. And so I and the other prep techs, after, like, doing this for a year, and if we knew we were going to go off into a job, like a series or something, we would test, get into the union, and then be able to work as a second, or as a camera PA, or as a utility or something. So I think it's a a great way to learn and then just learn about the industry itself. I just am a person that never felt like I had enough. And so I felt like, okay, what am I missing? Maybe I need to go to film school and see if there's something else I need to know about storytelling. And so I did that. And I don't know, I just never stopped learning because I always feel like, okay, I don't have it all. I don't know it all. And so I just keep going. Like even now I'm like reading all these books about cinematography and about editing and storytelling. So
I think always learning is actually one of the best things that anyone can do, at any point in their life about everything all the time, because, being inherently curious and being inherently wanting to get better at whatever it is that you do means you are always the most prepared. I got to say, it actually is a little bit annoying to me when I meet people who seem like they've learned everything they ever need to learn and that they don't ever want to learn anything else. So I'm sure you've met people like that too. But in this industry in particular, the way things change and how things keep evolving, and technology and everything else, there's even the methodology of working and the way that crew size has changed and the way that things are organized. And as the DP, you're the leader of 3 departments, you have to be aware, otherwise you're going to be a throwback, you're going to be working out of another era. But real quick, I'll get off my soapbox. But, USC, I know a lot of people who've been to USC over the years. I always hear really wonderful endorsements about the program. How was your experience there?
SC at the time was good for me because this is right after, I was like the cohort after Ryan Coogler, right? So we have the success of Ryan Coogler. And so my cohort, and I know it was different for people who came before me, people of color or Black folks. Like I had in my class, it was like so diverse, and I think it was because he led that charge and he like showed that like we have stories to tell and people will watch our stories, because that is a factor. Like I'm fully understanding that I am a woman of color, a Black woman in a predominantly white male industry.
White male, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you throw a rock, you'll hit like 15 of us. Yeah, so yeah.
So at the time, it was a great place to be. I feel like the professors that I had really cared about us and really ushered us through the process, and I learned a lot about storytelling. Like, I didn't go there necessarily to learn cinematography, and they weren't necessarily there to teach me cinematography because their objective was to teach you storytelling. Sure. Like, we had EX1, so that is what we had to work with, this very tiny sensor. But I love that because I was able to make beautiful images on an EX1. So,
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You give me an Alexa and, like, imagine what I can do. And like the friends that came out, they're all still working, and that is valuable. Like, to have someone, it's been 10, like, I'm almost, I don't know when I leave, maybe 10 years. I don't know how many years it's been. I'm very much removed from school. Yeah. And through, like, over the course of the years, I've been able to call my friends and just say, like, this is what I'm going through. It really sucks. And then they're also there going through the same thing, through something similar. It's just nice to have people on your side and who you can commiserate with. Talk
about getting out of film school and entering then the real world. And did you immediately go back east? Did you stay in LA? What happened?
I immediately went back east, and I don't know if that was the best choice because all of the friends and all of the network that I created was in Los Angeles. But I'm an avid believer that, like, wherever I go, I can create space for myself. So I came back east, and I had the opportunity to make the feature film with BET International, and then I had other job opportunities lined up, but became pregnant. And so I basically was told that I was a liability and was let go from all of these jobs, which is completely fine. Now, in the moment, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a network here and I don't have any jobs and I'm pregnant. But it worked out for the best because it made space for me to try something different. And I'd wanted to make an immersive project. So while at USC, I worked in the mixed reality lab, which was like students who just came together to create tech, VR, like immersive tech. And we would test different things, like Oculus before it came out, or Vive before it came out. We would test all those things. And we used the story to push the innovation forward, and like would win awards at like SIGGRAPH and all the things. So I had this experience, and I knew that I wanted to create a story about Black Wall Street and the race massacre of 1921, because I knew Dr. Olivia Hooker, who was one of the last known survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, and she was still alive. She was like 101 when I met her. And so during like my first pregnancy, I would go visit her, I would record her. I began like raising money so that I could create a VR project so that people can like meet her in VR.
Yeah.
But at some point she became bedridden, and eventually she passed away, but I just like kept going. And eventually I moved down south. I moved to Arkansas so that I could be closer to Oklahoma. And then they found 3 more survivors. And so by the centennial, by 2021, I had a completed VR project, and I showed it at the centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And now like I'm close friends with now there's 2 living survivors. I went to Ghana with them. They invited me to Ghana with them, and it was just a phenomenal experience that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't been let go from the other jobs. So everything works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. It's interesting, and it's really interesting the perspectives that producers have, that and it seems like it's an American thing baked into that. A pregnant woman can't do certain things. We've had Charlotta Bruce Christensen actually on the show, and she told the whole story about making a movie 8 months pregnant, and they made a custom easy rig. And it's a wonderful little story, which I won't spoil the whole thing here, but she got so strong when doing this job, which is all handheld, that when it came time to push, the doctors were like, okay, time to push. And then they were like, stop pushing. Oh my God, how are you so strong? You have to, don't push like that ever again. So, which was like, and she tells the whole story on the podcast, which is fantastic. But it made me think about, you're balancing now the production world and motherhood. So how do you talk about that? You got to have a network, you got to have a partner, you got to have someone to take care of kids. This is like one of the most difficult industries to try to balance life and work and all those things. How do you do that?
Yeah, definitely it takes a village. So I have a lot of help. My spouse is here who helps with, I have 2 kids now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my family, like I have, fortunately I have my parents who will step in, and my spouse's parents who will step in and will help, because the hours are insane. And I can't really imagine like telling a babysitter, hey, I'm going to be gone for 12 or more hours and I don't know when I'm getting back. And
or even where you'll be, or if you could answer a phone. So
right. I'm gonna be totally MIA. Like, don't call. I won't answer. So it's definitely helpful to have like that network. And then I also have friends here in New York who are in the same situation, like whether it be, they have a spouse too, or if they're a single parent. We just commiserate, and then we'll also like share resources, and I think that's really helpful. But yeah, definitely takes a village.
All right, so you've been doing this a while now, and you're in the union, you've got a professional career, you're interacting with people all the time. Do you ever go to the movies or watch something that's super inspiring, or whose work out there do you look at and go like, wow, I mean, that's really that's really inspiring to me? Who is there anyone out there you got like that you'd want to name check here?
Yeah, well, number one, I would say everyone, because making a movie is incredibly hard, but I definitely am a fan of a handful of people, like definitely Rodrigo Prieto, Lance Accord, Bradford Young. I have a few mentors two who I adore. Tobias Schlichler, who I just came off of a feature with.
Fantastic, yeah.
Be camera on a major, mind you. Let me just major film. So I'm really excited about that, and was also his assistant. So I learned a lot, and he's incredible because he's so good at lighting and being in the moment, and like working with production and working with his team. And like moves really quickly, like can light beautifully really quickly. Like I'm so impressed by his work, and he was just nominated for an Emmy for his work, All the Light Cannot See on Netflix. And so yeah, definitely him. Ellen Kuras, like I can go on, literally.
Ayana, this has been a great conversation. If people want to connect with you outside of this podcast, do you have social media or a website? Is there, where can people find you?
Yes, my Instagram is ICFlicks, ISEEFLICKS, and I have a website, ayanabaraka.com, and it's every other letter is an A, and Baraka like Mortal Kombat or the Baraka movie.
That's perfect. Ayana, thank you so much for being on the show. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so that was Ayana Baraka. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. It was so great to chat, and I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of your Serena Williams series.
And now, short ends.
So, Ben, it is our short end time of the show. It's when we talk about, whatever our pet obsession is. It could be anything across the media spectrum, or it could be something, technology. It could be whatever. What are you obsessed about this week?
Well, I know we talk a lot about AI. Oh boy, do we talk about AI.
Once or twice. Yeah.
And, like AI is coming out with a milkshake. AI is coming out with socks. AI is coming out with a cat. There's nothing that can't be touched by AI. And I came across a video on YouTube called "The First AI Cinema Camera is Wild." And I was like, AI cinema camera? What the fuck could that possibly mean? Like,
sounds like a scam.
yeah. Because like, if it is a camera, why use AI? I mean, like, I could see, for instance, using AI for follow focus, or like, there's a lot of things you could use AI for, but you wouldn't call a camera with an AI follow focus an AI camera. So what is this camera? It's called a CMR M1. Just rolls right off the tongue.
Okay.
And it's created by two companies. One's called Special Guest, and the other one is called First Avenue Machines. And the one thing that I thought was really cool about First Avenue Machines is they like made a music video for OK Go, the band OK Go, for the song "The Writings on the Wall." That's like a really complicated one. Or it's OK Go made a bunch of videos that were like really interesting one-shot ideas, executed in an interesting way somehow. And this was one of them. Very cool. And so when I was like, oh, okay, if they're with OK Go, they can't be all that bad. This camera is big and boxy, has interchangeable lenses, and it has a dial on it. And the dial helps you set the level of AI stylization that it's going to do to your footage. Also, it should be noted, this camera records at 12 frames per second, which immediately says to me, this is not, it immediately says to me, this is a boat anchor, not a camera. This is not a serious tool that anyone would ever use. Like in a world where my phone can do 60 frames, my phone can do 240 frames per second, your stupid AI camera should do at least 24 and 30. Like, I think that's fair to say. Like those are kind of the two things. And maybe it's more of a concept camera. I don't know. But here's the thing that really kind of chafed me a bit, is that, you can load in different looks, and you can use the dial to dial in stylization, and it's using stable diffusion, by the way, which is like one of the stock standard AI image generation models. So it's not even creating its own. It's not like Adobe creating Firefly or Midjourney or, whatever. It's stable diffusion. Is
using off-the-shelf stuff.
Anyone can use stable diffusion. You don't need to get this camera. And I don't even know if this camera is really for sale or if this is just kind of a concept car of a camera. I hope it is, because it's not doing the AI locally. Like, this camera is big and boxy, and I'm like, oh, there's like basically a computer in it, I'm sure. And there is, but it's not doing the AI locally. It's sending it up to the cloud, stylizing it, and sending it back down to your fracking camera. And everything about it just made me go, like, everything about it is a head scratch. I'm like, okay, if you could figure out how to add AI into a camera, that's cool, but there's literally nothing that you could do with this camera that you couldn't do shooting footage on literally any camera and then exporting an image sequence and running those images through Stable Diffusion your own damn self. I don't get what the point of this camera is. I don't mean to go all negative and be a jerk about this camera. I would love someone to explain to me why this camera is necessary on any level. Like, they showed, I looked at some of the footage that came out of it, and it's like, a guy on a skateboard and they put him in a tuxedo or whatever. And it's like, cool. Why do I need your weird ass camera to do this?
It's a great question.
Why do I need your weird ass camera to do this?
I don't have an answer for you.
But I think anyone who wants to check this out, there's a YouTube video called "The First AI Cinema Camera is Wild." This is not a cinema camera. No one is going to use this for cinema. You will not be seeing shots played in a cinema that were made on this camera ever. Never, ever, ever, never, 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 never. Unless there's a film festival of shit shot on this camera, that's the only time you'll ever see this used in a cinematic way. This guy, I guess he does a lot of stuff on AI. There's a bunch of people on YouTube who are probably making a tidy sum of money making videos about random innovations in AI, which are coming fast. And I some of them I go, it's kind of cool, or I kind of see where it's headed. And this is one where I just looked at it and I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I want to get it. I want to be like, oh, that's how you use AI for a camera. But again, I know I talk about Michael Cioni. I wax Michael Cioni's car a lot. Strata is how you use AI in the film production pipeline, not this.
I think we are in full agreement on this one.
All right, I'm gonna shut up then. Ilya, what is your obsession this week?
I don't, last week I did something I'd never done on this show before, which was I recommended music that I was into, Idols, which was great. And I
love Idols.
It's still very much like an obsession of mine right now. But I took a little bit of a car trip and started listening to Parable of the Sower. Are you familiar with this science fiction work from 1993 by Octavia Butler?
I am not in any way.
It's freaking, well, okay. It's great. It's post-apocalyptic, and the reason I started it was
because this is an audio thing.
This is an audio thing, but it's a book. It's been a book. It's been Octavia Butler. It's been around a long time. Written tons of fantastic science fiction. Some of her stuff's been made into television shows and in the past. This is also licensed. The person who licensed it, or the person who is turning it into a movie. God, I just had it here. Is from Garrett Bradley. Garrett Bradley, she was nominated for a Oscar for a documentary in 2021 called Time, which was a big hit at Sundance that year. So it will be coming to the big screen. I believe it's being turned into this, I have to imagine a fairly good budget production, but it is startlingly realistic in the beginning of this book in sort of this post-apocalyptic sort of future that doesn't feel too far removed from today, which is very, very clever and really well put together. It's basically sort of like after environmental disasters, and it's haunting and beautifully written, and damn, like I'm a huge fan, and I got to say that like from the jump, the reason I started it was because in the book, it's set to take place on July 20th, 2024. And so I started it on July 20th, 2024. And it goes in through like a couple of days and whatnot as you're going through it. And of course, in 1993, I'm sure it still felt like, 2024 was pretty far off. But here we're at 2024, and it's like, I'm not so far into the book where I know everything that's happened leading up to this. It's just starting to be revealed now. And oh man, it's like it feels frightening and wonderful, and it's sort of like I have a soft spot for post-apocalyptic stories, and I think this one fits right in there. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Garrett Bradley does with this work when it turns into a feature in the coming years.
So are you listening to like an Audible?
That's exactly what I'm doing,
book?
listening. And I highly recommend the performance of the narrator is done by Lynn Thigpen, who's been around, was around for a long time. She sadly passed away some years ago, but she's a character actress. You would absolutely recognize her. You've seen her in things, and she does a fantastic job reading this book.
Yeah, well, Audible's a great company, and I'm not just saying that because I worked for them, but they're awesome.
Yes, you are.
Well, I'm not working for them now, so
I have been a subscriber to Audible for years, and I only have maybe one or two credits at any given time because I just kind of like devour everything that's in there, which
that's
is
cool.
Great, yeah, that's really good. So Ben, that is just about going to do it for this episode. We're going to be back here in less than 24 hours doing this again, doing another episode.
We will, but we'll change our shirts. I mean, like we will have had a full night's sleep, and we'll be doing it in the.
There'll be sunlight coming in my window here. It'll be slightly different. So.
Same here. Yeah, same here.
So Ben, where can people find you? They want to find you outside of the Cinepod.
You should find me at benrock.com. Go there and check out my reel, and check out my socials, whatever. Find me on LinkedIn. Find me on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Find me on Facebook. I don't care. As long as you're not weird, I'll follow you right back. How about yourself, Ilya? Where can people find you?
Find me over at Hot Red Cameras. Hot Red Cameras Portland. We're gonna have doors open next week, at least some limited hours.
Whoa.
Kind of a big stepping stone. So taking a while to get to this point.
The big question is: Toby Wilkins going to be there when you open?
I might see Toby Wilkins tomorrow. Actually,
tell Toby I said hello.
I got to return a table saw to Toby. So anyway, so Ben, who do we have to thank for this episode?
Well, first off, let's thank our newish editor, Michael Dispenza, whose name I memorized.
Well done, Ben.
You're welcome, everyone.
Good job remembering Michael's name. It was really hard.
It's super hard remembering.
Did you just like put it on a Post-it note and stick it under your monitor?
Yes. Something like that. We got to thank our awesome producer, Alana Cody, who's setting us up with a bunch of kick-ass interviews. And we just did one last week that I can't wait to release. I'm very excited about it. You and I both did it. Holy crap.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too.
That might be a two-parter. We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. And then, of course, Kays Alatracci. We got to thank Kays. Kays composed all the music for this episode and
every episode.
Pretty much every episode of this show.
Because it's the same music every time.
We're not like doing some sort of trickery here. We're speeding it up like 2 beats per minute, and then we're like changing the pitch or anything. It is exactly the same music.
I fed it into the AI camera, and then I had it like illustrate it for me, and then I had it reinterpret that as music and output it.
That's very funny.
Yes.
All right, Ben. I have to say that friend of the show, Bill Totolo, suggested a new way for us to end every episode.
Oh, please, Bill, please save us.
Seacrest out.
No. I take all that, Bill.
You look stunned. I think that it was a joke, but he also probably didn't think that I would bring it up here. So.
Well, and with that, Seacrest out.
Seacrest out.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.